On the day of Monroe Group Hotel's anniversary celebration, my wife had her secretary, Caleb Morgan, host the event. During the ceremony, Caleb handed out performance bonuses to all department heads except for me. Just as I was about to step forward and question it, he publicly humiliated me. Nathaniel Hale, you've been freeloading at the hotel for years. How do you still have the nerve to ask for a bonus? Today, on behalf of the boss, I'm firing you, you parasite. The once quiet banquet hall instantly erupted into laughter. No one knew that the only reason Monroe Group Hotel had grown from a small guest house into a 7-star hotel was entirely because of me. I gave Caleb a faint smile, threw down my employee badge, and called my wife. I heard the hotel is firing me. Is that true? At that moment, all the mocking laughter stopped. Everyone perked up and turned their attention toward me. It took over 10 tries before the call was finally picked up. Leah Monroe's impatient voice came through the phone. Nathaniel Hale, what are you doing now? I'm meeting a very important client. What could possibly be so urgent that you have to blow up my phone? Can it wait until I'm back? I glanced at Caleb Morgan from the corner of my eye and said each word slowly. No, it can't. The next second, Leah Monroe's voice turned sharp and agitated. Yes, firing you was my decision. I was momentarily stunned, but asked again, if you're firing me, at least give me a reason. Leah Monroe sneered coldly. A reason? You seriously have the audacity to ask? You've been lazing around the hotel for 5 years, doing nothing but dealing with toilets every day. You've never contributed even a sliver of value. How dare you ask why? Even though I had turned the volume down, her voice still boomed throughout the entire venue. Nathaniel Hale listened carefully. My Monroe Group Hotel doesn't support freeloaders. With that, she hung up. The hall instantly fell silent. Everyone heard that, right? Caleb Morgan announced proudly on stage. Even the general manager herself says Nathaniel Hale is a useless waste. Someone like that doesn't deserve to stay in this company. He looked at me with a smug grin. I suggest you go home and get some sleep. Then he added with a mocking smile, freeloaders are always like this, aren't they, Nathaniel Hale? I stared at him with no expression and let out a cold laugh. So what you're saying, Caleb, is that I'm no longer needed at this hotel. Seeing me walk straight into his trap, Caleb almost burst out laughing. What else? You've been slacking off. During work hours, if it weren't for your relationship with the general manager, you'd have been fired long ago. Keeping someone like you around is just a waste of resources. I calmly shook my head. No, there's one part I disagree with. Caleb Morgan looked a bit surprised at how boldly I spoke. And what part is that? You don't actually think Monroe Group Hotel can't survive without you, do you? He jeered. Then he burst out laughing again. I smiled at him, then nodded. You're right. If I leave, Monroe Group Hotel will collapse immediately. The moment I said that, the silent hall exploded in disbelief. Oh my God, this guy is full of it. Our Monroe Group is a nationally renowned 7-star hotel. How could it collapse just because of one logistics guy? Exactly. This leech of a husband does nothing all day, and still mooches off the company for 5 years of salary. Disgusting, he's revolting. How does someone like this even exist? I kept thinking, man, just go die already. The insults around me grew, louder and louder, but I didn't care because every word I said was the truth. Monroe Group Hotels rose from a tiny inn with a handful of employees to a massive 7-star hotel with over 1,000 staff. That was all me, or rather, all thanks to the power behind me. It had absolutely nothing to do with the so-called general manager, Leah Monroe. Back then, Julian Rhodeses, founder of the Rhodes family's guest house, traveled all the way from Hisher to Port City just to beg me to marry his daughter, and he had with him a marriage contract personally signed by my father. At the time, I was a staunch bachelor, uninterested in marriage. But to help my father repay a long-standing debt to the Rhodes patriarch, I reluctantly agreed. Never did I imagine that after building Monroe Group Hotel into what it is today, people would still call me a useless nobody. The fire in my chest blazed higher. I decided to confront Julian Rhodeses directly to ask if the Rhodes family intended to turn their back on me. If he still insisted on letting Leah Monroe serve as chairwoman, I wouldn't hesitate to return the Rhodes family to what it was 5 years ago. Wait, just as I turned to leave, Caleb Morgan called out. Leaving already, Mr. Hale. I slowly turned back to look at the stage. What, Secretary Caleb? Don't tell me you still want me to stay for the celebration dinner. Caleb stared at me for a moment with a nasty smile before speaking. Before you go, hand over the hotel's property. I narrowed my eyes and met his gaze. I already gave you my employee badge. What else is there? Daniel Wilson snorted and raised the mic in his hand. Take off your uniform. The room erupted again. Nearly every employee looked at me with shock and fear. When I was in charge, it was all Nathaniel, every day. Now that I'd been fired, not a single person spoke up for me. Inside, I felt nothing but desolation. Caleb Morgan grew impatient when I didn't respond. Hey, Hale, I'm talking to you. Are you pretending not to hear me? I smiled calmly and looked at him. What if I don't take it off? You're the first person in my life who's dared to threaten me to my face. I'd really like to know who gave you that kind of courage. Caleb raised an eyebrow, his gaze full of contempt. Clearly not taking me seriously. Kid, even your wife doesn't want you anymore. What right do you have to act all tough in front of me? I couldn't help but laugh at that. And who told you I needed to rely on Leah Monroe? The moment I finished, several employees who were close to Caleb started attacking me. Well, look who's talking. The lapdog raised by General Manager Monroe, right? Acting like you're someone important, when really you're just a kept little pretty boy. If Monroe finds out you're talking like this, you'll be kneeling on a keyboard all night when you get home. They laughed loudly, clearly enjoying themselves. I silently committed each of their names to memory. If I'm not mistaken, you lot are all in cahoots with Caleb Morgan, aren't you? As a businessman, keen observation is a basic skill. From the start of the event, these people had been exchanging knowing glances with Caleb. They also received the largest bonuses. Their gift bags were practically bursting. But the hotel had clearly stated that annual bonuses were to be issued in equal amounts regardless of position. These few clearly received special treatment. Caleb must have been pulling strings behind the scenes. And poor Leah Monroe still foolishly handed over such important matters to him. Some of them started getting agitated at my accusations. Pretty boy, what nonsense are you spouting? We've got nothing to do with Secretary Caleb. Yeah, we just couldn't stand to see you wasting the hotel's resources. You think someone like you, a freeloading pretty boy, has the right to question us? I tried hard to stay calm but glared at them fiercely. I'll admit, I'm indeed better looking than all of you, and younger, too. But I raised my voice suddenly, eyes turning sharp. I personally don't like the Caleb must have been pulling strings behind the scenes, and poor Leah Monroe still foolishly handed over such important matters to him. Some of them started getting agitated at my accusations. Pretty boy, what nonsense are you spouting? We've got nothing to do with Secretary Caleb. Yeah, we just couldn't stand to see you wasting the hotel's resources. You think someone like you, a freeloading pretty boy, has the right to question us? I tried hard to stay calm but glared at them fiercely. I'll admit I'm indeed better looking than all of you, and younger, too. But I raised my voice suddenly, eyes turning sharp. I personally don't like the terms pretty boy or freeloader. I suggest you stop using them. Otherwise, you won't like what happens when I get angry. My sudden burst of intensity stunned those lackeys into silence. They were speechless for a while. Seeing his lackey being intimidated, Caleb Morgan's expression darkened. Freeloader, I've really been too kind to you, haven't I? You're just a jobless bum who's been fired from the hotel, and you think you can lecture my people in front of me. Let me tell you, today I'm not just firing you. I'm going to make you crawl out of here through my legs. I nearly burst out laughing at that. Turns out business circles in Hisher are way more entertaining than those in Port City. At least there's some clown performance. Secretary Caleb, are you speaking on behalf of the hotel? I looked at him calmly, but excitement stirred inside me. The moment I finished, Caleb waved a hand grandly. Of course, let me make this clear. General Manager Monroe is about to divorce you. She never loved you to begin with. I grinned without a trace of panic. Oh, is that what Leah Monroe told you herself? Caleb nodded without hesitation, his expression full of disdain. What else? You don't actually think a high and mighty hotel chairwoman would fall for a loser like you, do you? If it weren't for the old chairman's sake, you'd have been kicked out a long time ago. So, I was right. The Rhodes family now felt they'd outgrown me and wanted to strike out on their own. But they were picking the wrong target. Trying to burn the bridge after crossing it doesn't work on me. If I could help the Rhodes family rise to the top of Hashi's elite circle in such a short time, I could just as easily drag them down and leave them with nothing. For me, it would take nothing more than a snap of the fingers. But suddenly, I changed my mind. After all, the real show hadn't even started. How could it end so soon? Caleb Morgan had no idea what I was planning. Seeing me standing motionless, he thought I chickened out and grew even more arrogant. Hey, Hale, what's the holdup? Everyone's waiting. Are you going to kneel or not? If you crawl through my legs today, maybe you'll still be able to find some scraps to survive on in Hisher. As he said that, he raised the microphone and shouted toward the door, "Security, get in here." At his command, a dozen staff members wearing Monroe Group badges stormed into the venue. Under Caleb Morgan's direction, they rushed toward me and quickly surrounded me. At the same time, Caleb stepped down from the podium. He stood in front of me with his back straight and legs apart. "Secretary Caleb, are you really planning to use force on me? Don't forget, I'm still married. Aren't you worried Monroe might hold you responsible later?" The moment I said that, Caleb burst into laughter. "I knew you'd try to use Monroe as your shield. Good thing I came prepared." With that, he pulled out his phone in front of everyone and made a call to Leah Monroe. Once the call connected, he handed the phone to me with a wicked grin. "General Manager Monroe has something to say to you, Soon, Leah Monroe's voice came through loud and clear. Nathaniel Hale, I want a divorce. I replied expressionless. What's this? Found yourself a new man already. Even through the phone, I could feel how excited Leah Monroe was. Name your price. Whatever you want. Just say it. As long as you agree to divorce me, you can have whatever amount you want. She didn't answer my question directly, but I wasn't in a hurry. Keep your money. I believe it won't be long before the Rhodes family is wiped out. Then my tone suddenly turned cold. There's only one thing I want to know now. Who has a death wish and dares to steal my woman? Leah Monroe scoffed at my anger. You're not even qualified to know his name, but I'll tell you this. He's from Port City, a level you'll never reach. I almost laughed out loud. I was really curious. Who in Port City had the guts to challenge me? Before I could respond, Caleb Morgan snatched the phone back. Enough. Even if Monroe told you who it was, what could you do? My advice. Crawl out of here, on your knees. You might even get a nice severance payout for a kept man like you. That's not a bad deal, is it? Despite Caleb Morgan provoking me again and again, I didn't lash out. I held back, not because I was afraid, but because I still hadn't figured out who was really behind all this. Now that I had the answer, I didn't need to play along any longer. Enough. I swept my sharp gaze across the room. Looks like this celebration banquet isn't happening anymore. So, I'll give you all two options. Those who know what's good for them, leave now. As for the rest, from this moment on, you're my enemies. And when it comes to enemies, I, Nathaniel Hale, show no mercy. As soon as I said this, laughter erupted around the hall. Did you all hear that? This pretty boy is actually giving us a choice. Hilarious. Nathaniel Hale, are you seriously imagining yourself as some kind of boss? We all heard the call earlier. Monroe herself kicked you out. What right do you have to make threats? I forced myself to stay calm and said slowly, have you never heard the saying? There's always a sky beyond the sky. Someone better beyond every man. I, Nathaniel Hale, have never relied on a woman to get where I am. Looking at those sneering faces, I couldn't help but feel disappointed. Is this what the corporate world is really like? They used to mock me as a live-in son-in-law or a kept man. I never argued. I treated it like a joke. But now, just because Leah Monroe wants a divorce, everyone was ganging up on me, kicking me while I'm down. Was this the cost of my low profile? Because of my special background, I rarely made public appearances. Even when I overheard people gossiping about me behind my back, I simply laughed it off. But I never realized that my restraint had become the reason they dared to step all over me. Seeing that I wasn't moving, Caleb Morgan's face darkened. Hale, if you still won't kneel, I'll have them drag you down. Hands in my pockets, I shot him a sideways glance. All right, I've played along with your show long enough. Now it's time I show you some real power. Caleb Morgan was furious and rolled up his sleeves, charging straight at me. But just then, the banquet hall doors flew open. Everyone, including Caleb, instinctively turned to look. A young man about the same age as me strolled in confidently. Were you all looking for me? James Miller, what are you doing here? Caleb gasped, and everyone turned their attention to the newcomer. Clearly someone important. From the sound of it, you must be the one from Port City. The man raised an eyebrow and walked toward me with his hands behind his back. You got it. I've got my eye on your wife. If the Rhodes family wants to break into Port City, they need my Miller family support. In exchange, she's more than happy to be my woman. Sounds like a fair deal to me, doesn't it? He spoke with shameless arrogance, never once making eye contact with me. So, James Miller, you're here today to force me into a divorce. James Miller nodded, giving me a look of pity. From what I've heard, you and her have been married 5 years and never even kissed. That just makes it even sweeter for me. Ha ha ha. I didn't get angry. Instead, I responded with surprising generosity. If you like other people's wives so much, then she's yours. Then I burst into laughter. Though I do wonder, since when did Port City start producing trash like you? The moment I said it, James Miller's face turned beet red, his voice trembling with rage. Hale, did you just insult me? Do you know what the Miller family means in Port City? If you piss me off, I swear I'll have your entire family buried with you. I glanced up at him, chuckling lightly. Oh, the great Miller family of Port City. That's it. But you know what? You just reminded me of something. You're right. If you piss me off, your entire Miller family will be buried. And with that, I threw a punch straight at him. The spoiled heir from Port City didn't even have time to react before my fist sent him crashing to the ground. Everyone in the hall stared in shock, their eyes practically bulging out of their sockets. Heavens, this guy is bold. He even dares to punch someone from Harbor City. Does he have a death wish? Exactly. Why not just obediently get divorced? What's the point in resorting to violence, daring to hit someone from the Miller family? Not even Watua could save him now. As the murmurs around grew louder, Caleb Morgan finally snapped out of his shock. Nathaniel Hale, you're finished. James Miller won't let you off the hook. I waved my hand indifferently. Secretary Caleb, you've got it backward. The question isn't whether he'll let me off. It's whether I'll let the Miller family off. Just as I finished speaking, James Miller finally came to his senses. Wiping the blood from the corner of his mouth, he looked up at me, eyes red with fury. "You pathetic leech. How dare you punch me? I'm going to kill you today." As he spoke, he shoved Caleb Morgan forward. "Get him. I want this bastard carried out of here in a body bag." The words had just left his mouth when Caleb Morgan bared his teeth and lunged at me. "Everyone stop right there." An urgent voice echoed. From a few meters away, everyone turned their heads, curious. A frail elderly man supported by a servant slowly entered the banquet hall. "Julian Rhodes, why is he here?" Seeing the situation before him, Julian Rhodes immediately understood what had happened. He brushed away the servant's support and, panting slightly, walked up to me and gave a deep bow. "Nathaniel Hale, I'm deeply sorry. I came too late. Fortunately, I reacted quickly and caught him before he could bow too low. Who knows what kind of gossip would spread otherwise? Chairman Monroe, there's no need to be so formal. I no longer have any connection to the Rhodes family." Julian Rhodes opened his mouth to say something, but seeing the resolute look in my eyes, he swallowed his words and redirected his fury entirely at Secretary Caleb. A sharp smack rang out and a red handprint immediately bloomed on Caleb Morgan's face. "You idiot! Do you even realize what you've done? You've dragged the entire Rhodes family into this mess." Caleb Morgan was stunned, staring at Julian Rhodes in confusion. "Chairman Monroe, why did you hit me? This man is James Miller from Harbor City. I was standing up for him. What's wrong with that?" I scoffed coldly. "What's wrong? Everything. Supporting an outsider to attack your own employee. That alone would get you fired hundreds of times over." Julian Rhodes had just managed to steady his breathing, only to be left shaking with rage again by Caleb Morgan's words. "You have the nerve to ask me that? No matter who it is, if anyone disrespects Nathaniel Hale, they deserve to be slapped. Caleb Morgan, let me make this clear. If Nathaniel Hale suffers even the slightest injury here, I'll hold you personally responsible." His words rang with authority. But Caleb Morgan still looked lost. He just couldn't understand. How could a freeloading pretty boy like me compare to someone like James Miller from Harbor City? "Chairman Monroe, surely you're not confused here. You'd really rather offend James Miller to protect this useless parasite. If we lose the Miller family's favor, how is our hotel supposed to survive?" Many of the staff nodded in agreement with Caleb's words, but Julian Rhodes didn't see it that way. To outsiders, maybe he looked like a senile old man who couldn't grasp the current situation, but only I knew he was doing everything in his power to save what was left of the Rhodes family. I casually found a seat and sat down, curious to see how the founder of the Rhodes family would handle this situation. Fortunately, Julian Rhodes didn't let me down. A man in his 60s, he completely cast aside his image, and like a furious street brawler, he jabbed a finger at Caleb Morgan and unleashed a verbal barrage. "Caleb Morgan, as the founder of this hotel, I order you to get on your knees and apologize to Nathaniel Hale. You're also fired." Then he straightened his back and stood in front of me. "If anyone here dares lay a hand on Nathaniel Hale today, they'll have to step over my dead body first." Julian's declaration stunned Caleb Morgan into silence. On one side stood the powerful Miller family from Harbor City. On the other, the hotel's founder. He couldn't afford to offend either. While he stood frozen in hesitation, Leah Monroe arrived, carrying a briefcase. She hurried into the hall, clearly fresh from a meeting. "Nathaniel Hale, how dare you hit James Miller? Get over there and apologize right now." I raised my head slowly and met her gaze. In a cold voice, I said, "Miss Leah, I think you're the one who owes an apology." At my words, a flicker of surprise flashed in her eyes, but it quickly disappeared. "Nathaniel Hale, you can't blame me. You brought this on yourself by being so useless." The Rhodes family has finally clawed its way into the upper crust of Shanghai's society. To go further, we need to expand into Harbor City, and the Miller family is our best shot. I looked at her and spoke coldly. "So, this was all a lie from the start, wasn't it?" No matter how much Leah Monroe had looked down on me or fought with me before, I had always let it slide. But this time, I was furious. Leah Monroe was divorcing me in front of everyone for an outsider. "You're right," she said. "The only reason I married you in the first place was because of my father, but it's been years. I have my own plans now." I stared at her coldly and said slowly, "Leah Monroe, this counts as cheating during our marriage." As I spoke, I kept my eyes fixed on Leah Monroe, but I saw her avoid my gaze, clearly feeling guilty. Before she could respond, James Miller stepped forward. "So, all this talk is just about money, huh? Tell me how much you want. I've got plenty of cash." I watched this arrogant rich kid from Harbor City like I was watching a show. "James Miller, don't say I didn't warn you. I already told you there are serious consequences for making me angry." No sooner had I spoken than Leah Monroe snapped back angrily. "Hale, don't scare people here. You're nothing but a parasite living off the Rhodes family. We've been married. So long, and you haven't done a single decent thing. All you do is mess around with the hotels, toilets. Being near you makes me sick. To be honest, if it weren't for my father, I would have divorced you long ago." After saying this, she even made a disgusted face as if I smelled bad. How am I not doing my part? Isn't it thanks to me that the Rhodes family has come this far? Probably Julian Rhodes kept the truth from his daughter to protect my identity. Leah Monroe's words caused everyone to burst into laughter. Did you hear that? This pretty boy's good looks are the only thing going for him. He's completely useless. Exactly. James Miller from Harbor City is on a whole different level from this loser. If only our Monroe CEO could marry James Miller, maybe the hotel could expand to Harbor City. People around kept flattering James Miller, but not one stood up for me. To them, only power and profit mattered. Morality was irrelevant. With employees like this, no wonder the hotel's days are numbered. Leah Monroe, you want a divorce? Fine, I'll give it to you. But you have to promise me one thing. Leah Monroe sneered. Name it. There's no problem money can't solve. I chuckled and shook my head. Not that. I just want to say, after we divorce, don't come crawling back to me on your knees. Leah Monroe thought I was desperate and mocked me even more. Whoever regrets it is a fool. Seeing her so smug, all my last hopes for the Rhodes family vanished. Leah Monroe, you misunderstood me. I never wanted to beg you to stay. I just want to tell you that the entire Rhodes family will be destroyed because of you, and that so-called James Miller from Harbor City will suffer the consequences too. I wanted to show some mercy out of respect for the older generation's ties. But some people just don't appreciate it, like Leah Monroe, who stood before me full of mockery. Nathaniel Hale, look at yourself before you talk. How do you compare to James Miller? He can crush you with a flick of his finger. Leah Monroe tried to keep talking, but I raised my hand to cut her off. Enough. Stop wasting time. We're getting divorced now. Julian Rhodes was furious at how things had turned out. But no matter how he tried to reason, Leah Monroe refused to listen and had him restrained. The divorce papers are ready. Sign them now. Looking at the documents on the table confirmed my earlier suspicions. From the moment Caleb Morgan fired me to James Miller's appearance from Harbor City to Leah Monroe forcing a public divorce. Everything had been planned by her from the start. Without hesitation, I signed and handed back the papers. Leah Monroe smiled with a trace of dissatisfaction. Nathaniel Hale, what are you smiling about? I looked up at her with an emotionless voice. Why am I not allowed to be as happy as you? The Rhodes family is nothing to me. You'd better sign quickly before James Miller loses interest. Leah Monroe's face flushed red from my retort. She glared at me before signing her name on the divorce papers. Sign if you want, like I'm begging you or something. And just like that, our 5-year marriage came to an end. I felt no sadness, only relief. Leah Monroe immediately started rushing me out. You've signed, now get out. I stood slowly and smiled lightly. Get out, not a chance. We haven't even settled our accounts yet. Before Leah Monroe could say anything, James Miller, who had been silent for a while, suddenly jumped in. Pretty boy, what right do you have to settle accounts with us? Seeing James Miller defend her so openly, Leah Monroe said smugly, Nathaniel Hale, you better leave before James Miller makes a move. I cut her off and pulled out my phone to send a message. There's a dog from the Miller family barking in front of me. After hanging up, I ignored the murmurs around me and focused on the stopwatch on my phone. Sure enough, 1 minute later, James Miller's phone rang. Seeing it was his father calling, his heart skipped a beat, and he instinctively glanced at me. He lowered his voice and answered the call. Dad, why are you calling me now? You unfilial son, I don't care what nonsense you cause normally. But how dare you provoke Nathaniel Hale? The person on the other end was obviously furious, as if ready to swallow him whole. Hurry up and apologize to Nathaniel Hale, or we'll sever ties and disown you from the family. This was the first time James Miller had been so publicly scolded by his father. He trembled uncontrollably on his legs. After hanging up hastily, he collapsed to his knees in front of me with a thud. Nathaniel Hale, I'm sorry. I truly didn't mean to offend you. Please forgive me. I'll disappear immediately and never show my face before you again. Please get lost. Don't let me see you again. Seeing my forgiveness, James Miller cowered several more times before slinking away in shame. The entire incident took no more than 10 minutes. Everyone present was stunned, staring at me with strange looks, afraid to even breathe. The fearless Leah Monroe was the first to speak, pointing at me and shouting, Nathaniel Hale, what exactly have you done? Julian Rhodes is hurried forward and slapped her hard. You unfilial daughter, still disrespecting Nathaniel Hale. Don't you understand why I married you to him in the first place? Leah Monroe was stunned, looking at Julian Rhodes's with great grievance. Dad, why did you hit me? Julian Rhodes's was clearly furious, his chest rising and falling heavily. Nathaniel Hale is someone none of us can afford to offend. Do you really want to ruin the Rhodes' family? Leah Monroe stood there dumbfounded. After thinking carefully, she recalled James Miller's fearful expression earlier and her father's attitude toward me. She then knelt before me, crying, husband, I'm sorry I was wrong. Please forgive me. We won't divorce. She tore up the divorce papers she had just signed. I looked at her coldly and emotionlessly and said, Leah Monroe, in 5 years of marriage, you never looked at me properly and even allowed outsiders to frame me. If it weren't for me, would your Rhodes' family have achieved such glory? Now that you realize I'm not ordinary, you want me back. Hearing my accusations, both Leah Monroe and Julian Rhodes hung their heads in shame. Caleb Morgan, who had always been arrogant, trembled and cowered to the side. I used to care out of respect for the previous generation. Now that the debt is paid, I have no ties left with the Rhodes family. I finished speaking and cast a deep look over everyone present. Those who framed me and looked down on me just now all turned their faces away, afraid to catch the fire of my wrath. At this moment, they finally realized the truth of my words. The so-called gold digger and pretty boy they mocked was the one they dared not provoke. I sneered, then turned and walked away without looking back. What happens to the Rhodes family next, or whether Julian Rhodes punishes Leah Monroe and Caleb Morgan is no longer my concern. My loveless 5-year marriage was over. I boarded the plane back to Harbor City. Before boarding, I received a message from Leah Monroe. A few very simple words. Nathaniel Hale, I'm sorry. I didn't reply and felt nothing inside. I pulled out my SIM card and tossed it into the trash. Leah Monroe.